It is live already, Pramod sir.
Yes.
Shall we start?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ghanshyam sir, I request you to please start.
Ghanshyam sir.
Sir, please unmute and start, sir. Pramod sir, I think I will start, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Just I announced. I request Dr. Payal Datta Chaudhary, ma'am, Joint Secretary of iSPELL, to start the event formally, please.
Thank you so much, Pramod sir. A very good afternoon to everyone present. Today is the third day of the month of iSPELL's anniversary celebration. It is all the more significant because we have with us today Professor Chudamani Nandagopal ji as the resource person of the 53rd Sunday Sahityik Satsang. Keeping in mind the special occasion of the anniversary month of iSPELL, this month's Sunday Sahityik Satsangs have been focusing on the theme Indigenous and Incredible India. On the first Sunday, we had with us Sri Prakash Belavari ji. Last Sunday, we witnessed a wonderful cultural Sahityik Satsang by Padma Shri Anuj Sharma. So let us begin today's session without further delay. It is my pleasure to introduce the Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Eboklak Pingrop, to all of you who will be the host for the day. Eboklak Pingrop, hailing from Shillong, Meghalaya, which is known as the Scotland of the East, is an assistant professor at the Synod College and a PhD scholar at Reva University in Bangalore. He is an ardent writer and an enthusiastic thespian who enjoys his occasional doodles. He completed his undergraduate and postgraduate degrees from Christu Jayanti College in Bangalore. He also has a book published, a collection of poems titled Asylum, Intervention of the Soul. With this, I hand over the session to Ebok. Ebok, please start the session and invite our resource person to start today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Payal ma'am, for the generous welcome. It is indeed a privilege to be a part of iSPELL. Learning is the beginning of wealth. Learning is the beginning of health. And learning is the beginning of spirituality. Searching and learning is where the miracle process all begins. A very good evening to all the dignitaries, event coordinators, eager learners and educators, and a hearty welcome to this gathering. In what might become magnificent in the years to come, Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature continues today a nascent light with its enlightening Sunday Sahityik Satsang. And for this edition, we shall be enlightened on Panchatantra, visual transformation of animal fables. I welcome you all again to partake in this beautiful learning venture. It is my pleasure to welcome and introduce the speaker for today's session, Professor Chudamani Nandagopal, and we also have amidst us the chairperson, Dr. Prakriti H.N. Professor Chudamani Nandagopal is a reputed art historian and a recipient of 4 international and 2 national research fellowships, including the first scholar to receive the UK Visiting Nehru Fellowship at Victoria and Albert Museum, London. Her first national fellowship was from ICHR for her research on Kalyana Chalukyan temples. At present, she is researching on the symbolism of sacred space in early Dravidian architecture, an ICHR research project. Her book, Dance and Music in Temple Architecture, 3 volumes of temple treasures, to name a few, are in great demand. She has published 70 research papers to her credit and is an invited speaker and as a keynote speaker as well in several international conferences. Ma'am is the founding trustee and secretary of Dr. S. R. Rao Foundation Advisory Board member Dharmothana, Trust for Restoration of Temples Dharmasthala, Joint Secretary Indian Art History Congress, and she has recently been nominated by HRD Ministry as a member for drafting the language policy for the country. She is a visiting professor in some of the national and international universities and consultant to various museums. She has dedicated herself to the field of Indian art and cultural heritage. She is involved in several collaborative projects with universities across the globe. Retired from regular service, she is serving the cause for interdisciplinary research in the field of Indian art history and cultural studies. I hand over the session to you, ma'am. We are eager to hear from you, ma'am. Once again, a hearty welcome and over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pingro. Namaskar and good evening to all. It's my pleasure to be part of this first anniversary event of Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature in the presence of the chair, Dr. Prakriti, Professor Ghansham, Mr. Pingro, and Dr. Payal Datta Chaudhary. Today, I draw your attention towards one of the oldest texts of Indian literature known as Panchatantra, which is contextualized, dimensionalized, widely popularized, and globally acknowledged as the source for all animal fables. I'm thankful to the Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature for inviting me to share my thoughts on this well-known subject. To know, to understand or research any aspect of Indian life, we usually consult the Vedic literature, which is primary source of knowledge. Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharvaveda are the earliest milestones of Indian literature, which further extended to Brahmana texts, Upanishads, and Aranyakas. Following this vast knowledge is the Upavedas. The Upavedas are the subsidiary literary sources derived from Vedic literature. All the four Vedas have their own Upavedas. To name a few, like Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, Gandharva Veda. Among them, the most outstanding and quintessential text is Bharata's Natya Shastra, sourced from Gandharva Veda. The fourth Upaveda, sourced from Atharva Veda, is known as Sthapatya Veda, that is science and art of architecture, engineering, economy, polity, material sciences, etc. The texts like Kautilya's Arthashastra, Vishnu Sharma's Panchatantra, and Narayana's Hitopadesha are considered as texts belonging to the category of Upaveda of the Atharva Veda. This shows the high influence and importance of Panchatantra in the genre of Vedic literature. India is known for its textual tradition in Sanskrit in all fields. Panchatantra, authored by Vishnu Sharma in 3rd century BCE, is a very important text universally acclaimed for its significance to showcase the knowledge of shared human culture. Here, the main characters are different species of animals along with the human characters. They are all speaking animals and they are all interestingly having their names. Depicted in the light of socio-cultural milieu with expressive human emotions, these fables have popular appeal and these fables traveled across cultures of the globe. My presentation today has 3 segments. Firstly, I begin my presentation with the place, status, and importance given to animals in Indian thought, society, religion, and culture. Secondly, the transformation of Panchatantra fables in artistic representation. Thirdly, literature for children and other types of texts emerged on the lines of Panchatantra. So this is how I have divided.
Ma'am, you please alert us whenever we need to change the slide.
Yes. Now I think we go to the slides. We can start the slide. Next slide. Yes. This, you see the visual representation of animals. So where do we find these representation? And to which phase of human civilization it belongs? This is a prehistoric period. Graffitis, we call them as graffitis. So they are the early cave paintings. You can see how the animals are represented. Some of the animals, even interior part of the animals are shown, which we call it as X-ray of the animals. And some human beings are associated with the animals, and they are also going for hunting. And in some rituals, animals are presented as part of that ritual. So in this way, you see that the very early human expression in lines and forms we find in particularly in the prehistoric. I can even mention the site which we have known as Bhimbedka, that is in Madhya Pradesh, and it was discovered by our great archaeologists, and it is dated about 30,000 years ago. Here I would like to bring to your attention that human mind always thinks in two forms. One, the words; the second, image. Which has come first, whether image or the word? So it is like egg and chicken, which has come first. It is like, to that extent. So when you think of any concept, for some people, the picture appears first. Words go little later. And for some, it is words which are formed, concept is, it is conceptualized. And then they ask someone to bring the concept into the picture form. Anyway, picture and words are very important in all our expressions, in whatever phase of our civilization or culture, and even in the contemporary life. Both these medias, that is word and the picture or the image, are very important and influencing our mind in every way. Please go to the next. Now here is the early representation of Indus Saraswati Valley civilization. These are the seals from Indus Saraswati civilization. Earlier it was known as Indus civilization, but now after a very good phases of research, we also see that Indus and Saraswati is the huge plateau where the entire valley was comprised as Indus Saraswati Valley civilization. So these seals are preserved in National Museum, which is sourced from Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. So you can see so many kinds of animals are represented in the first seal. That is why, the image, that is the human image, is known as the Pashupati, who is commanding all these forms of animals. You can see every kind of animal, and even the reptiles and other things are shown here. And the other one is mainly about the elephant. See how perfect the imagery even in the Indus Valley period. Next, please. This is a very interesting, pottery, which is the ceramic of Lothal, found in Lothal. And this is sourced from my book, Arts and Crafts of Indus Civilization. Because I was working with Dr. S.R. Rao, who has discovered Lothal. So he asked me whether you can write exclusively on the arts and crafts of Indus civilization. So under his guidance, I wrote the book, and these are some of the, you can see the fables here. The crow and the, jackal, the very popular, story, which every child is known in our country and other countries also. So that is found on this pottery. And he has very clearly, interpreted all these, the animals connected with the fables, which have been formed as Panchatantra little later. Next, please. So now here you see the representation of visual representation of animals in Sanchi, the Buddhist stupa, where you have the Torana, the architrave. On 4 sides, you have the architraves. In one of the architraves, it is wholly dedicated to all the animals, and you can see the animals in full form. They are not graffiti or they are not engravings, but they are in the rounded form. So it is first time in Indian art we find the rounded sculptures of animals. You have the lion, you have the horses, then the elephant and the bull. These are some of the important animals which becomes later the part of the Ashoka's capital, which is the Indian, the Rashtriya, it is a symbol of India today. So that is the formation of all the animals in that particular Ashoka Stamba. Next, please. Continuing with Sanchi, we have several narrative panels in Sanchi. Say Sanchi belongs to 2nd century BC. At early stage, they have beautifully narrated everything. And here you can see, along with human beings, the monkeys are also taking milk to offer to Bodhi tree. That is, Bodhi tree was represented as Buddha. In the times of Sanchi, when it was built, we don't find the image of Buddha, because Buddha has been symbolically worshipped, either in the form of the footprints, or the Bodhi tree, or a throne, or it is like the Chatra. So these are the symbols of Buddha. So it was only the symbolism which prevailed at that time. Only from Kanishka's period, we have the human form of Buddha. So this is what, you find number of narrative panels where you find the animals are keenly involved there. Next, please. Now coming to Ajanta, the paintings. So there is a Mahakapi Jataka in Ajanta, because as you know, the Jataka tales are more than 420 tales, which is believed that Buddha has taken those forms. In each of these Jataka tales, Buddha comes into a form. So here, he is represented as a Mahakapi. So there is a Mahakapi Jataka, a story goes on, a benevolent Kapi, a very helpful Kapi, and that is what is narrated on the paintings beautifully in Ajanta, which belongs to 4th century AD. Next, please. Continuing with Ajanta, there is one Jataka known as Shraddhanta Jataka. In that we have the elephant story. So Buddha comes as a white elephant, born as that, and he is associated with his fellow elephants, and the way he spends his time with the fellow elephants and the beautiful lotus pond, all these things are represented in line form and colored in Ajanta caves. This is one of the corridor of the cave, and the 17th cave. Next, please. Apart from that, we have visual representation of animals in various sacred spaces. Like there can be a massive bull. Massive bull is the vehicle or vahana of Shiva. And wherever you have the Shiva temple, the bull will be represented there. So we have given such an important position to bull known as Nandi. So before entering into the Shiva temple, you have to pass through Nandi and he will permit you to go inside. That is the faith. So you have one Lepakshi, massive bull in Lepakshi, and the other one is near, this one is, I think, near Nandi, near Bangalore. And this is one, the hooded, the Sarpa. And it is like, providing the shade for the Shivalinga, apparel. So this is one massive, both you can see even the Kalinga is worshipped in Indian, faith or Hindu temples. So this is from Lepakshi. So just to give you might have seen more than that. I'm just giving you, drawing your attention towards all these things. Next, please. Continuing with the animal representations in the temples, if you just watch the Utsavas, you come across with the Garuda or the horse or even the Shesha Utsavas. And there, what is the significance of this? And in our the puja or the ritual system, all these animals have their place and they also want to serve the god. And when you go to temple architecture, you can observe every, usually the basement, either it is, they are known as Bharavahakas. They are holding on their back. Most of the time it is elephant or it will be the lions. And you can see here, they are holding the entire pillar. And here in Kanchipuram, Kailasanatha temple, you can see the galloping lions, which becomes the Bharavahakas of the temple. Next, please. Even in Jaina faith, you have the Parshvanatha is having the hooded, protecting him, or he symbolized with this hooded, serpent. And Mahishamardhini, you all know that she stands on the Mahisha because he is an Asura. It is not just ordinary buffalo, but it is an demon. So like that, Saraswati also has, or Lakshmi, she has the elephant, Saraswati has the swan, and on the temple architecture, even the facade of the temple is decorated with several kinds of animals. This is from Hampi, and this is from the Chola temple, that is Brihadeshwara temple. You can see even the lion, the hamsas are used as decorative elements as on the architecture. Next, please. So this whole thing, what we get an idea that how important the animals, they take their place, status in Indian thought, literature, and art. And using this understanding, we have the Panchatantra. When you go through Panchatantra, you feel that, somewhere you are in one of these temples or Ajanta caves or, Sanchi. Try to understand the kind of, the friendship between these animals. All these, kinds of things which we'll see further. So the Panchatantra is the story of origin. That is India's greatest story book. Next, please. So Panchatantra has 5 evergreen fables. That is you have Mitra Labha. It has, the meaning of Mitra Labha is gaining friends or maintaining the friendship, taking the benefit of having the friends or winning the friends. So all the stories, that is the collection, is related to winning the friends, and it has 30 fables. And one story will have sub-story, and then it will lead to another story. Like that, it has about 30 fables. The second book is known as Mitra Veda. Due to certain of your behavior, how you lose your friends. So this is a collection of stories related to losing the friends. It has about 10 fables, and the third book is mainly on crows and owls. So it is the collection of stories about rules and strategies of war and peace. See, so early they have thought about the entire strategies of war and peace. If it is not understood with the hardcore philosophy or the rules or regulation, at least you can introduce through these stories the war and peace concept. So it has got about 18 fables. Then the fourth book is Labdha Pranashan. And it is collection of stories, how to come out of difficult situations without losing them. See, it is a kind of, a behavior that one has to develop, even in difficult situations, how you have to come out and what kind of strength you have to have, what kind of confidence you have to have. All these, aspects or human behavior can be understood from this particular book, which has got the laws of gains. So it has about 13 fables. And the last book is on, this is on Aparikshita Karakam. So this is about how imprudence leads to losing what is important. This is acting without thinking, the foolishness, without understanding what you are taking the next step. You yourself, you can commit many, wrong things. So this has about 12 fables. Next, please. Now, interestingly, we see all these representation in some of the temple interiors and exterior walls. It is very interesting to know also that Virupaksha temple from Pattadakal. Pattadakal is a World Heritage Site, UNESCO World Heritage Site. And this has the Panchatantra tales. Probably in Indian sculptures, it was in Pattadakal, first narrative sculptures have been depicted. Otherwise, you find most of them are the compositional sculptures. But narrative sculptures get the attention first time in Pattadakal, that is in the early Chalukyan times, that is 8th century. And this is on the crow and golden necklace from Mitra Veda. You can see the story, the first and the second are from the Mitra Veda, book number 1. Next, please. Continuing with Virupaksha temple, Pattadakal, this is the story of foolish cranes. That is from the book Mitra Veda. You have the Mitra Veda, where you find the foolish cranes, because of their foolishness, how they lose everything. So this is the story which depicts starting from 1 to continuously goes. Next, please. And one more story you find here in Virupaksha temple is on monkey and crocodile. You can see the very, very famous and popular story of monkey and the crocodile. All of us know about that. And this is from the Mitra Veda again. And the second story, narration, is on the book number 5, that is Labdha Pranashan, Aparikshita Karakam. From that, it is on the loyal mongoose and Brahmin, couple, and how they lose because of their, greediness. They lose, how they lose the whole thing. So next we have these are the earlier ones. What you have seen are the narrative panels you find on the pillars of the interior of Virupaksha temple. But here what you see is on the wall, that is in the Tripurantaka temple, Belligame, that is near Shivamogga. It belongs to later Chalukyan period, and you can see very well the monkey and crocodile. That story is beautifully narrated here very clearly on this panel. And here is a painting, the contemporary painting, which represents the same story. So another panel like that is from Tripurantaka temple. It is about the crab, crow, and serpent. The whole story is on these three characters and how they help each other in this particular story. It belongs to 12th century. This is an elaborate panel. You see that so many characters are represented. So it is fox, elephant, hunter, and python, the four. And this is also from Tripurantaka temple, Belligame. Another interesting series of paintings from Jaipur. You can say Rajasthan, Mewar. They are called as miniature paintings. What you have seen in Ajanta and all, they are mural paintings which are on the wall. And these are the miniature paintings which are on the either on the cloth or the canvas or the handmade paper usually. And they are all in the collections of not only India, almost all countries would like to have the collections of Indian miniature paintings. Wherever you go to any museums in the different countries, you come across with the miniature paintings, and some of them have a very good collection of Panchatantra miniature paintings. And this is from Mewar. So this is about the winning of the friends. By four of these animals, because of their unity, how they escape from the hunter themselves, and they support each other. So that is how their friendship is once again, confirmed and justified. In Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, New Delhi, that is in 2019, they had a Panchatantra whole exhibition. It's a beautiful exhibition. Even on textile, there are many, many Panchatantra stories become part of textile weaving in different cultures. So this was one of the very, very good exhibition they had for almost a month. Next, please. Next, please. Next. Next. Next, please. Yeah, this is done. Exhibition. Next. Yeah. So this is Panchatantra, birds beating down the ocean. This is one of the famous story. It has, the collection is in Philadelphia Museum in US. And it belongs to Rajasthan, that is 18th century. So how the talkative turtle is carried and his lips are sealed by the cranes. And that is, it's an interesting story which is shown by the artist in so many ways. And it has the parts, different parts in that story. Next, please. And these are some of the other, the hunter and the crow, and how the mouse, helps the, cutting of this nest and other things. And this is the first Mitra Labha, the lion as the king of the forest and other animals. There are several stories with this concept. And also like, the crocodile and the monkey story. And so Panchatantra 3D, DVDs are also available a lot. Now we have the children literature, because Panchatantra is very much, liked by children. And I think the grannies of children become very, very popular and lovable, adorable, because they have narrated the Panchatantra, next please, Panchatantra stories to their children. So this is each of these stories, which are again, it is said as 101 Panchatantra stories. So like that, there are many, many, editions which have come as Panchatantra stories for children. Very colorful. And you must be aware of Amar Chitrakatha, number of, it lived on the, these Panchatantra stories. Next, please. Now, these are different versions of Panchatantra, which has been translated to Arabic, and it was reconstructed by Franklin. And again, you have the Metropolitan Museum has got a whole collection of Kaliya Diman. And also you have a comic book known as Panchatantra. So Panchatantra started, when it was originally written, it was in Sanskrit. Then it has been translated to many, many European languages. Also in Arabic culture also, we have Panchatantra as important. Another interesting, similar to Panchatantra, the text is Hitopadesha by Narayana. And this goes in the later to Panchatantra. And many have interpreted that this Hitopadesha more or less basically depend on Panchatantra, and some of the stories are retained as it is, and some more fables have been added by the time, and you get so many Hitopadesha stories also. So that also has been translated, and it has traveled across culture. So finally, if you go to this, the narrative, culture or the story, how it has transmitted, and even today, how they become popular. What is the way it must have come through? See, India is known for its oral tradition too. We have such great depository as written sources. In the same scale, or more than that, we have the oral tradition. And most of the times, oral tradition is always neglected. People feel that, it is not that important or useful. And they also say that it loses its history, or it loses its chronology, or it can be exaggerated, or it's more of imaginative. But oral tradition is the real, the core content of Indian stories. Even you take Mahabharata or Ramayana or Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavata or Devi Mahatmya, whatever the text, you find that all these have come earlier in the form of a oral tradition. including Vedic sources. They were all oral tradition. Later, they have been brought into the written form. That is why UNESCO has declared Indian Vedic chanting as world's oral tradition, not only for India. It is world's highest, of highest caliber, very scientific, very clearly stated. Oral tradition of India is the Vedic literature. See, earlier, UNESCO also was not taking oral tradition so strongly. But of late, maybe from 2 decades, they have taken oral tradition very strongly. And wherever the oral tradition is emphasized, they believe that human values are, considered, or human values are given higher importance. Even, when I was working for Ramappa Temple, the UNESCO recognition, you must be knowing that on 25th July, Ramappa Rudreshwara or Ramappa Temple from Telangana, that is Palampet, is recognized. About 18 countries, they deliberated and then finally declared, inscribed Ramappa Temple as the UNESCO World Heritage Site. This was the 5th World Heritage Site for South India. So it is 39th UNESCO Heritage Site for India. So what I mean to say here, why they recognized this Ramappa Temple so strongly? I was requested to write the dossier for Ramappa Temple. So I became the part of writing dossier as a team, and I emphasized the oral tradition which has been historically proven as part of Ramappa Temple and its development. And that has given, because every country has spoken about it, the oral tradition emphasized the human values. That is where UNESCO considered it and recognized it. And I also wrote a book on Ramappa Temple, a huge book. And it was sent to all these 18 countries, also to Paris, on the 44th session. When the session was going on, this book was referred by all the concerned. That gave them a clear picture of Ramappa Temple. So what I mean to say here is how important is the oral tradition. So Panchatantra also, as the oral tradition, it has come down to us in the form of oral narratives. You have the Jataka tales, as I said, the Buddhist fables, even in the Jainism, because they are the people who advocated ahimsa, non-violence. So each animal, each insect is so important in Jainism. So the stories and the fables are related to that. Please go to next slide. Next. Yes. And Brihat Katha by Gunadhya. The meaning of Brihat Katha is the magnanimous and huge story. Katha is story. So Gunadhya has written a huge story which runs and runs into pages. And that is also the treasure of Indian narratives. And the third is Panchatantra by Vishnu Sharma, who is the author of the Panchatantra. And Hitopadesha is, again, as I said, by Narayana, is one of the very important texts. And another text, if people get time, they have to go through. This is the treasure of stories, Katha Sarit Sagara. It has 1,000 stories by Somadeva. And it has got more than, as I have seen the series, it is more than 50 books, goes on and on. Ocean of stories, Katha Sarit Sagara. And then our own Karnataka writer, Durga Simha, in 12th century, he has written Karnataka Panchatantra. That is why you must be wondering why there are so many Panchatantra representation in Karnataka temples and in paintings. This is because of Durga Simha's contribution. And we also have Aesop's fables, Arabian Nights, Kalila Vadhilma. These are all the stories more or less, follow the methodology and the pattern of the Panchatantra. And later, as many as 200 translations and versions are available of the Panchatantra. So now I think I gave you a kind of a vision, I can say. What is Panchatantra for Indian, narrative concepts and narrative, the thinking in terms of narratives, and how important it is in everyday life. It's not only just in the either in philosophy or understanding in the Niti Shastra or something like that, but even in our daily life, day-to-day life, Panchatantra stories stand as very, very significant. And as you know, the symbolism laid in that, it has its own reference to everyone's life, deeds, and understanding the life. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please continue the session.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a very interesting and captivating session. And indeed, art of any form is evergreen and limitless. Now we hand over the session to the participants. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and we'll allow you to speak.
Some of the questions are there in the chat box.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, this is from Dr. Parveen Kumari. Why animals, not plants, are used as symbols, mostly in Panchatantra?
Yeah. See, plants are part of, picturization. When you go to animals, are specifically because they are characters. Each one is given the name, and they speak as human beings. And in some stories, if you go to this Katha Sarit Sagara, even the plants have, the trees have their characters, and they talk, and they give their philosophy, and they are also part of the stories.
Thank you, ma'am. From Dr. Puvama, why is that people have not thought of introducing Vedas or Upanishads as part of our curriculum in all its seriousness, either at the secondary or high level of education?
Yes, now we are opening up in this new education policy. I think they have greater scope for introducing. And apart from that, there are many Gurukula system is going on in the country. And for example, I myself at this later age of myself is learning. So learning the Vedas and knowing the Upanishads and these things, any age of your life you can enter into. There are several Gurukulas are there, which on Friday and Tuesday morning 6 to 8, I have a class. So I'm a student there.
Thank you, ma'am. From Dr. Krati Sharma, the question, thanks, ma'am, for this wonderful and thoughtful session. My question, is it mandatory to document this oral folklore or folk songs for universal readership in exploring research, inclination, and publications.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, it is needed. And much of documentation is going on. Fortunately, you must have heard Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts from Delhi. Way back 30 years ago, it was established. Dr. Kapila Vatsyayan, who was a visionary, she started thinking about documenting our oral tradition. All our folk songs, whether it is Northeast or the Rajasthan has got very rich oral folk songs, also from South or Kashmiri. So we are losing many things from Kashmiri, but still the oral tradition is still very much alive. So the such documentation is going on, but it's our moral duty, every one of us, whenever we come across with any kind of such oral tradition with human values, we must immediately document. And then we can share. That's a very important thing, which I always do it. And I request you also people to document immediately. Today, documentation is not a problem. Immediately you can switch on your mobile and document and then share, which was not possible. We used to take the video camera and with us, and when we used to document all these oral traditions earlier. But today it is so easy. We must.
Yes, ma'am. Kriti is asking if animals have spiritual life. Do animals have spiritual life?
I think when we go into the depth of their understanding, they definitely have the understanding of the peaceful life, at least, if not spiritual, what we think as humans. They too love a peaceful atmosphere, a peaceful life. Yeah.
Actually, Raja Rao has written a novel on the Ganga Ghat, where not only human beings but also animals go to Benares for attaining their moksha.
Moksha, yes, true.
Ma'am, the next question is from Prasanta. In tribal literature too, it is found the animals play an important role in folk tales. Is it the influence of Panchatantra?
Which one?
In tribal literature too, it is found that animals play an important role in folk tales.
Yes.
Is it the influence of Panchatantra?
It's not directly an influence, because things exist parallelly in almost all cultures. Maybe directly, in some instances we have the direct influences, but in some influences it happens because, after all, human beings think similarly in the same level. What is good and what is bad, all these things are common to any culture. So in tribal life also, we have it's a fantastic, because I'm a sociologist also, while studying the tribal culture and tribal society, it's very interesting to have those things to be documented. Of course, the anthropologists are doing a great job today, documenting all of this tribal, literature, narratives, and all that. And definitely, maybe some are influenced, some are original by themselves.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Payal ma'am is asking, in all indigenous tribes of India's northeast, animal fables are found. Do these animal tales have a larger goal and purpose in the formation and way of life of these indigenous communities?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Yeah, maybe a lot of work or research has to go into this question itself. Very interesting. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Animals are the part and parcel of folk tradition and culture. Is it because they are the part of life and home?
Definitely, yes. Because every domestic life is dependent on animals, and they must have come across with the wild animals also, and they know the difference between the wild animals and the domestic animals, and the way they interact And all these things, is part of their life, everyday life. So they are well aware of these things than our, city dwellers.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other questions? Yes. Can we expect a time when we will be able to communicate with animals? Kirti, ma'am is asking if we can expect a time when we would be able to communicate with animals, ma'am.
It's very internal experience, I think. It's very internal experience. In this, if you take the 64 art, we say that India was known for 64 types of arts. So Chatushashta Kala. So what are these 64 arts? So one of them is talking to birds, bird language, camel language, elephant language. So the kings and some people were well versed with this. And it is like, learning any other language. So there are, instances we get. For example, if you take Nala Damayanti story, Hamsa plays a very important role, bringing Nala and Damayanti together. Hamsa, that is the swan. And Raja Ravi Varma made it such beautiful paintings on Hamsa and Damayanti. It became the subject for him. So this is like, it's a personal experience, one, in today's understanding. So in early times, they had the language, knowing the Ashwa, that is the horse, the language of horse. Like that, every animal, they knew the language, and there was a process of learning this language also.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have any other questions? Anyone? Pile, can I move on?
Ebok, let us go ahead with the chairperson session.
Yes, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much, Churamani, ma'am. I am elated to welcome and introduce the chairperson for today's event, Dr. Prakriti H.N. Dr. Prakriti is a professor in the PG Department of English at Jyoti Nivas College, Bangalore. She has over 30 years of experience in teaching. She has guided several MPhil and PhD scholars and is on the board of studies of many universities. She has authored several research papers which have been published in reputed journals and has published a book in Kannada on corruption in 2003. She has been the resource person for several invited lectures and has conducted workshops on various aspects of language and soft skills. A hearty welcome, ma'am. I request you to kindly address the gathered.
Thank you for that introduction. I have to thank Dr. Chudamani ma'am. It has always been a pleasure listening to you, and you give us a source of information. It could be on art, architecture, painting, and today I have grown reading Panchatantra, and Panchatantra stories have always impressed me as a child and as an adult. It's basically today what we are talking about, visual narratives, where we try to understand the narrative strategies of visual medium, that is the images and the text. It was exactly what our forefathers did, what our predecessors did. So we are going back in another way. We are not advanced forward. So listening to your narrative about Panchatantra and its significance, I only felt that where have we headed? We are in a way with a new name attached. We are going back to our Vedic times. We are going back to our ancient times, understanding the significance of text and image. For example, the prehistoric man started his narrative with cave painting, and then it was transformed into writing. The earliest form of narration, as you told, man, has been oral communication, and the earliest form of writing has been this graphic mode. And today we understand the importance of graphic and comic narrative, and researchers are hell bent on working on visual narratives, which means they're going back to what their earlier predecessors have a wealth of information stored in it. So actually, when you told about Somadeva, Durga Simha, it was a wonderful information that you gave. But I had read these stories, but I actually didn't know who the authors were. So Durga Sima from Karnataka has given a wealth of information. And when we study the art and architecture, the temple architecture, surely we understand how Durga Sima has been translated on walls. Okay, educating us about the mural painting and educating us about the miniature painting. I didn't know the subtle difference between miniature painting and mural painting. And thanks for that information, because you spoke about the subtleties of the mural painting and miniature painting. And if tomorrow, if you have to do research on painting itself, one should understand the narrative strategies and the subtleties of these artistic mode. So that explanation came through well, and you spelled out the very narrative mode and the very strategies that goes to make a painting, because painting is also a narrative, and accompanied sometimes by text, and sometimes just the image itself will convey a lot of information. And also the Upavedas, Artha Shastra, you mentioned about Artha Shastra, the Panchatantra and Natya Shastra, Bharata's Natya Shastra. All these are such strong narratives, and it is sad that from Westerners we understand the importance of our own culture. So we cannot negate, or we cannot neglect the wealth of literature that our ancient masters have done. And also there are some stock characters. It could be in indigenous literatures, it could be in folk literature, it could be in the Upavedas. You do have stock characters. Animals are represented as stock characters. The tortoise is a stock character. The fox is a stock character, which symbolizes cunningness. And the crow symbolizes clever or intelligence. And also you have the doe symbolizing love. So in Nala Damayanti also, as Madam gave the mention of the swan. Similarly, you also have the doe. It could be in even in the epics, even in mythological narratives, animals have played, birds have played an important role, plants have played an important role. So it is there, very much there, the pulse of understanding animals as part of living world is something very important that we have understood. Today, because of technology, we consider man's world as anthropocentric, where man is the center of the universe. No, our Vedic literatures tell us that it's the other way around, because animals, all of us live in communion, and that is what the Christians told. Pagan culture is actually not pagan culture, but it is living in harmony, and that is what the Panchatantra breathes about. That is what Jataka tales breathes about. But the PPT presentation, which matched your narrative, actually gave us an actual, code that goes to symbolize these paintings and how we have to decode the paintings. The paintings are all there, but the decoding is so personal. The decoding is so interpretive. And as a result, it is an art which keeps moving. The meaning gets postponed. So each era narrates this painting in a different way. Each era interprets it in a different way. So it's not a dying culture. It is a moving culture. It is not transient. It is not stationary. It keeps moving. And that is the wonderful work of art. Panchatantra, how I understood, the way my son understands, the way today's children will understand, may be different. But it all means that Panchatantra is still alive. It is still with us. So thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful session. You have enlightened us about all these aesthetic design, the wonderful narrative, and the significance and its relevance today. And we cannot forget our ancient past. We have to enliven that in our everyday activity and learn something new from that. So with this, I conclude my talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I now hand over the session to the conveners, Professor A. Gansham, Founder and General Secretary, iSPELL, Professor of English, Directorate of Higher Education, Raipur, Chhattisgarh, for presentation of certificates. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Yok. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Yes. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chudamani ma'am, for and also decoding various things, and such a pictorial presentation. It was not only for the people of English literature, but also it was very beneficial for the historians and even the archaeologists also, because in India we have so many sites which not only fill great of energy, enthusiasm, and understand what a country India was and what a country India is. In the present scenario also, many of the folk literature, folk tales, and folk narratives, they are the real essence of the life. Even in the modern life also, we do go back to the folk culture, folk tradition, folk art, and we do get many of the inspirations from them. And I, stationed at Chhattisgarh, I invite you to come to Chhattisgarh, which is the heart, which is the essence of the true culture of the folk. Here you will find the sites which are date back to the BC, and also the temples also, wherein you will find such a beautiful pictures and such a beautiful stone monuments. Even nearby Bilaspur, there is a particular site which is known as Devrani Jathani Mandir, and in that site you will find is the only one of its kind in the entire world. And the person has done like he has rotated the snake as the mouth of the Rudra Shiva. So all the animals have been used to depict the particular character of Shiva, and that has been made to call it as Rudra Shiva because of the Rudra Avatara, having the wild animals, having all the animals and all the insects together. So in that way, if you find India is a country which has immense potential and immense energy in it. And when you were talking about the Gurukula system, I do hail from a family wherein my grandfather was having a Gurukula in Gundlupet near Mysuru. So he was the one who started the Vijay Gurukula there. And then later on, we moved to Chhattisgarh, and I am stationed at Chhattisgarh. But new education policy, NEP 2020, is going to bring back the Gurukulam into the curriculum. If we bring back the Gurukulam into the curriculum, that's the beautiful thing what India can do for the academia. So presentation and representation of Indian culture, and basically the Panchatantra. Not our love, our affection in the form of this particular certificate, which is a token of our gratitude to you on behalf of Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature. Pramod, if you just show the certificate, this certificate goes to you, ma'am. Kindly accept it.
Thank you so much. Very nice.
And it is said that nature, Prakriti, it teaches everything. And when you get into even the Wordsworth, even if you think of Wordsworth, even if you think of Kalidasa, even Kalidasa has written many of the things related to nature also. And when he wrote Abhigyana Shakuntalam and even Meghdut, Meghdut was written by Kalidasa near a place called Ambikapur, which is known as Ramgarh. In Ramgarh, Kalidasa sat there and he wrote Meghdut. And the entire hillock, it appears like the head of the elephant. And Kalidasa not only wrote that, but he enacted that there only. First open-air theater of the world, which is known as Ramgarh, which is just 230 kilometers from Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. So the Prakriti attracts you towards it. And the same way, our chairperson, Dr. Prakriti, has done the same thing. We have heard her even in our faculty development programs, and the way she manages, the way she speaks, the way she makes us to understand very critical and difficult things in a very easiest way is her Prakriti. So thank you very much, ma'am, for enlightening. Certificate is a token of gratitude to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Nice.
Yes, the next one. We have with us the Master of Ceremonies, Ibok. Ibok is an upcoming budding writer also, and is the one who is not only making us to understand various cultures, bringing it together, but he is the real promising guy who has taken us right from the beginning till the end. he was the one who was the captain of this particular ship. So this certificate goes to the captain of the ship for taking us towards the ultimate destination. Ibok, this certificate goes to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Oh, Dr. Payal?
Yes, sir. Thank you for doing the honors.
Yes.
It was such a wonderful session, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, ma'am. And indeed, it's a great honor for all of us to have you on the platform of iSPELL. We do hope to contact you and connect with you. And I do welcome you to Chhattisgarh on behalf of iSPELL, on behalf of iSPELL Chhattisgarh Forum. Come to Chhattisgarh, be the guest of Chhattisgarh and culture, tradition, custom, and the literature of the country. Thank you very much to you, ma'am. All of you keep safe, keep healthy, and keep in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The role of a creative leader is not to have all the ideas. It is to create a culture where everyone can have ideas and feel that they are valued. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Jyoti, President of iSPELL, for the innovative ideas, the support, and the guidance. Thank you. Time is said to be the precious gift of all. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, Dr. Churamani, and our chairperson, Dr. Prakriti. Thank you for an informative, enlightening evening. It is such a pleasure to be part of this learning process. The task of a leader is to get his people from where they are to where they have not been. I sincerely believe that Professor A. Ghanshyam, founder and General Secretary iSPELL, has shouldered this responsibility nobly. We are in the 53rd Sunday Sahityak Satsang, celebrating the month of the first anniversary, and the hard work, perseverance, and determination is reflected in the content faces of the members and listeners of iSPELL. Thank you, sir. It is quoted that a leader is someone who helps improve the lives of other people or improve the system that they live under. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Payal Datta Chaudhary, Joint Secretary iSPELL, who journeyed with iSPELL through this venture and forever supporting and guiding throughout. Thank you, ma'am. I express my sincere gratitude to all the members and listeners of iSPELL. Thank you for joining us today. Once again, thank you all.